Outcasted OC. Viewer discretion is advised. Incoming transmission in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, it's Courtney here from the Outcasted OC and welcome to the Monday Night Raw recap. You know how it goes here. I don't like to mess about too much with my introductions to the episode, so let's just jump straight into this week's Raw. So Monday Night Raw this week started off with a video recap of last week with Judgment Day. Obviously a lot happened last week with the Judgment Day in terms of there having tension, and then there was, JD getting involved, and the video recap showed a lot of segments and stuff from the main event that they had. Obviously how Judgment Day finally decided to band together and start to act like a team, get those killer instincts back that had been lost. Then we move into the beginning of Monday Night Raw. So Sami Zayn comes out. Now keep in mind, Monday Night Raw is in Canada. They are in Quebec this week. And when I tell you, when Sami Zayn came out, the pop was blow the roof off. It was so loud. Everyone was so happy that Sami was there. I was happy that Sami was there. He honestly deserves so much recognition. He is phenomenal, and he honestly this year has really come into his own. He is so incredibly over with the crowd. The crowd was just going absolutely crazy for him, singing his song, chanting Olé. I literally wrote down in my notes, Sami is so over with the crowd. He's standing in the ring for at least 5 minutes after he comes out, and he can't say anything because everybody's just so excited that he's there, and they're just chanting and singing, and even he's taken back by it. He's so surprised by the reaction, overwhelmed, and just so incredibly happy that people are so happy to see him. So he starts off by welcoming everybody to Monday Night Raw in French. Now obviously in Quebec, I believe they speak French Canadian. So anyway, he was, welcoming them, and then before he gets to say anything else, Judgment Day decides to come out. So I wrote down as well too that this is all 4 of Judgment Day, so it's nice to see that Judgment Day is putting up a united front. So Sami goes ahead and says, before you do whatever it is that you're going to do, I have one question for you. Did you really think that I was going to come here, of all places, alone? And then out of nowhere, Kevin Owens' music hits, crowd goes absolutely bonkers for this, and I was like, thank goodness, because I was really concerned for KO and his injury. Now, for those who don't know, I believe he had a few fractured ribs or just some pain in his rib cage. Happy to see that he's back and he looks happy, healthy, and he's thriving. So he comes out and he starts brawling with Dominic along the entrance ramp, whilst Sami ends up brawling in the ring with Finn Balor. Then KO grabs Finn Balor as he's running towards the ropes and ends up throwing him into the barricade. Then Damian Priest tries to grab Sami Zayn, but Sami Zayn reverses this. KO grabs Damian Priest and hits him with a stunner. I was like, this is what I want to see. This is awesome. Sami and Kevin end up hugging in the ring and the crowd just goes wild. Then we end up hearing Kevin going ahead and saying that it's been far too long since I've had a match on Monday Night Raw. So how about this week we do Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus any 2 of you from the Judgment Day. You can pick who. And then the match gets made official during the ad break. The first match of the night was New Day versus Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle. Now, obviously, this is going off their interaction from last week in terms of, Matt and Drew are very much trying to work together. Matt Riddle's more excited that Drew McIntyre is his partner, but Drew McIntyre is not really super sold on the whole idea of him being in a tag team. He's more of a singles wrestler, but he's obviously working with Matt Riddle because Matt Riddle's been, getting himself into a little bit of strife lately, and obviously Drew's there to protect him. So we had the tag team match between the New Day and Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle. Now, I wrote down that it looks like New Day have not missed a beat since they've been gone. They've been gone off television for quite some time, but they've come back, obviously, because Kofi had ankle surgery. They've come back and they've looked like they've never left. How is it that you are like a 12-time tag team champion, like the entire group of New Day, you leave for a couple months, when you come back it looks like you haven't even skipped a beat? Impressive. They put on a really good match. New Day have a little bit of extra grit in their attitude, and by that I mean they're not always, happy, throwing out pancakes and stuff. Like, they've got a little bit more grit and attitude to them. Whether or not that's me overthinking and overanalyzing and potentially them, getting a little bit more grit in their character, I keep saying grit because I don't want to say they're turning heel, because I don't think they are. They've just got a little bit more attitude in their character, and I really like that. Drew McIntyre's strength is heavily on display during this match. There's a moment in this match where Matt Riddle tries to hug Drew McIntyre in the middle of the ring. He's not really having any of it, but then Drew McIntyre has the idea to grab Matt Riddle and throw him backwards over the ring apron and the ring as well too, because you've got Kofi and Xavier standing outside of the ring. I thought this was a really cool move. This match is just, I can't say anything bad about it because it's a really good tag match. The New Day put on nothing but great performances, and there was some really beautiful sequences of moves in here from the New Day. It was really good to see. There was a moment where Kofi Kingston was flying off the top rope and Matt Riddle ends up hitting him with a flash knee, which that timing on that was just impeccable. Drew McIntyre was trying to get tagged into the match, and then Eric ends up coming out from somewhere under the ring, or he ends up just coming in and just pulling Drew McIntyre down. Trouble in Paradise is hit by Kofi Kingston, and New Day end up winning the match. Then the Viking Raiders end up beating down on New Day, but then Drew McIntyre ends up beating down on the Viking Raiders. So I don't really know what's going on there in terms of, is there an alliance now with the New Day and Matt and Drew, because they both kind of got beaten down on Viking Raiders? Not really too sure. But anyway, I've got no idea what's really ever going on with them. Then we end up seeing Jackie Redmond backstage. Now she is talking to JD McDonough and Finn Balor and is asking about, JD's bond with Finn, and asking, is that potentially going to cause tension with the Judgment Day members? And JD goes ahead and he says, well, I hope not, because I've known Finn Balor for a very long time. He's like my older brother, and I just want what's best for him. I know what's best for him, and I just want what's best for him. And I'm really hoping that the friendship between me and Finn makes Judgment Day stronger. And Finn Balor says, listen, Jackie, I know exactly what you're trying to do here. You're trying to stir the pot, and I'm not having it. And he said, last week, Judgment Day laid out Sami Zayn and Cody Rhodes because of JD. And he says, well, maybe if anything. And then Rhea Ripley comes in and says, Finn. And Rhea is just trying to get Finn's attention. And Finn goes, hey, sis. And then Rhea says, I'm really sorry to bother you, as in referring to Finn Balor. And then she goes, sorry, not sorry, to Jackie. I was like, Rhea, you don't have to be this much of a savage. And she goes, we have to talk about who's going to face KO and Sami Zayn tonight. And he says, let's go talk about that. And so they start walking off. And JD McDonough tries to follow. And Rhea goes, and holds his chest back. And he's like, And she's like, Judgment Day only. And Finn looks at JD and goes, I'll chat to you later. And that's how the segment ends. I thought it's so funny that Rhea is just asserting her dominance and is like, no. He's not a part of Judgment Day. Therefore doesn't get to stand around in these conversations. Then something that was actually missed when I was watching Monday Night Raw back, but I did end up finding the promo online. So Shayna Baszler cut a promo, and I actually really liked the promo, and I really liked what she had to say. So she says, you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. And then she says, I've watched all these frail toy soldiers pretend to be opposition for long enough. And she says, you've all got me in a vendetta kind of mood, and you don't seem to understand that I'm not here to be your hero. She says, I'm here to set it all on fire. Your only hope is that you survive. Let the world burn. So clearly, Shayna Baszler is going through some things. She's feeling some things. She's kind of in an angsty kind of mood, and I'm totally here for it. I need to see that version of Shayna Baszler that we had in NXT. This main roster version of Shayna, while it has been great at times, I kind of feel like there is a little bit of her character that's lacking, and I'm really hoping that moving forward we get to see some really good stuff from Shayna. I know we got the tease between Shayna and Becky Lynch. I know that's going to happen at some point. I'm just excited for whenever it happens. Then we had a video recap from the Chad Gable and Giovanni Vinci match from last week. Now, obviously, this is because Chad Gable won the contenders match for the Intercontinental Championship, and Gunther decided to put Giovanni up against Chad Gable as a last-minute ditch effort to kind of prove Imperium's, dominance over Alpha Academy. So we got to see the video recap from that match. Then we saw that earlier in the evening before Monday Night Raw started that Gunther cut a promo towards his match with Chad Gable tonight. So he went ahead and he says that tonight the world will witness the glory of the greatest intercontinental world heavyweight champion of all time. And he says, Chad Gable seems to believe that time is my enemy, but indeed time is my friend. With every day passing, I'm building my lifelong legacy. Chad Gable, I respect all your accomplishments. You will not make a name for yourself on my expense. And he says that your fairy tale ending or your fairy tale story will end tonight. And I was like, I loved this. This was one of those promos where you don't really need a fancy setup. You don't need like a fancy background, fancy lighting. He was quite literally in a room with a white wall, camera facing him, and he just had like a deadpan look on his face. And I'm really loving Gunther at the moment. I believe he's 18 days away from beating the Honky Tonk Man's record to becoming the longest intercontinental champion of all time. And I honestly do think he is going to become that. Then we saw that Alpha Academy was backstage getting ready before the match when Byron Saxton interrupts and goes ahead and asks about, how do you guys feel about Gunther's promo? And Otis goes ahead and talks about how, Alpha Academy coming together at some point in his life really helped him. And Maxine goes ahead and she says that she couldn't have imagined being an in-ring competitor until Chad Gable showed her the way, and said that Chad's been working for this for 10 years, and if there's anybody that can do the impossible, it's Chad Gable. And then Chad goes ahead and says, there's only one thing I have left to say. And he turns and he goes, thank you! Which, I'm not going to do it for as long as he does because I can't hold the note for as long as he does. But I also just look really cringe doing it. I'm just going to leave it to the professionals. Then we had the match between Chad Gable and Gunther. Now, straight off the bat, this had a big fight feel. The way that everyone got introduced in the ring, the lights were dimmed. This is the way I want to see the Intercontinental Championship get treated moving forward. Now, I understand that, the World Heavyweight Championship and the undisputed WWE Universal Championships get treated this way, but I believe that treating your mid-card titles in this same way gives that same aura of a big fight feel whenever the champion is actually challenged by a contender that could genuinely be seen as being able to dethrone them, i.e. Chad Gable. So we move into the match. Now, I'm just going to say, straight off the bat, this match is like a clinical classic. I sat and watched the match for the first time, and then I rewatched it because I wanted to actually understand what was going on, because it's one of those matches where you want to watch it first before you decide to write any notes. But anyway, so Gunther and Chad are working each other on the mat from the very beginning. Then Gunther ends up working Chad's arm, which ends up moving into Chad trying to power up on Gunther to, get the hold taken away. There's a beautiful sequence in this match from Chad Gable. Gunther's just out here throwing Chad out of the ring and Gunther ends up hitting Chad with a couple of chops, and then Gunther ends up dropping Chad Gable onto the barricade spine first. Gunther's on the attack. Gunther's out here throwing Chad into the ring post, and then Chad ends up getting beaten down, but he fights back. And Chad Gable ends up putting an armbar on Gunther outside the ring, so how he tries to hang off doing his armbar. Then he goes ahead and hits. So Gunther ends up hitting Chad Gable with a very heavy clothesline, which is also followed by another clothesline. Then Gunther ends up locking in the sleeper hold in the middle of the ring, but then Chad ends up trying to work his way out of it, and he fights back. Then Gunther ends up putting a sleeper hold back on Chad Gable, and Chad Gable reverses this into a suplex, which I think this man can reverse anything into a suplex at this point. Then Gunther ends up kicking Chad in the stomach, and then Chad Gable ends up getting a ankle lock on Gunther. It kind of looks like Gunther's going to tap, but ends up finding a way to get out of it. Then we see a moment where I believe Chad tries to go for a moonsault, but it ends up getting reversed, which is quite cool to see. And then Gunther ends up hitting, he tries to hit, because Chad Gable's standing in front of the ring post. You got the ring post here and you got Chad Gable, and then Gunther comes in and Chad moves out of the way and ends up hitting his hand against the ring post, and then Chad Gable ends up grabbing Gunther and actually throwing him into the timekeeper's area. While this is all happening, the ref is counting inside of the ring. Chad gets in the ring and he wins the match. But as we all know, the match is won by pinfall or submission. meaning that Chad Gable is not the new Intercontinental Champion. He just won the match via countout, and Gunther is not happy at all with this. He is just like fuming. Imperium comes out, which they come out kind of late, which I think is also causing a little bit of dissension within the group. The fact that Ludwig and Giovanni are just not there when Gunther needs him, I feel like is adding a little bit of tension to the faction. But then Imperium goes up to Samantha Irvin and is like, hey, like, that's not fair because it was count out, therefore Gunther's still champion. And she ends up announcing that, you know, Gunther is still the reigning Intercontinental Champion. So that's how the match finished. I really liked the match. I kind of wish they had have saved it for Payback, but nonetheless, I'm happy. The match was really good. I'm very interested to see where Gunther goes from here. If Chad gets a rematch, I want to see where Chad Gable goes from here. But I do think that Chad Gable has actually really proven himself. I believe he's taken Alpha Academy from being like a comedy group to like actually being taken seriously. And I'm really vibing with it. Then we see the Judgment Day are backstage. Now they're in this little wee corner of the arena. I feel like that's their little wee headquarters, their home base. And we see that Rhea is trying to talk to the boys, and she says, you know, we've been talking about this for a really long time. Who's going to be in the match tonight? And Finn says, I don't know how many times I have to say this, but I think it should just be me and Dom. And Damien was like, to be fair, you guys would make a fantastic team, but Dominic is the NXT champion, or the NXT North American champion. I'm sitting your Money in the Bank. Kind of just makes more sense. It'll be a better team. And Finn's like, what's that supposed to mean? And Damian Priest was like, Dom, what do you think? And Dom's like, both of you guys are amazing. And tries to get Rhea's attention. He's like, Mommy? And then Rhea goes, guys, I thought you guys had buried the hatchet. And Damian and Finn at the same time both are like, we did. And then Rhea's like, we're not doing this again. I don't have time for this. I've got my own stuff tonight happening with Candice and Indy. It's obviously not going to be me because I can't be in the match. Figure this out before Dominic and I get back. Otherwise, I'll be making the decision. And they kind of just look at each other as Dominic and Rhea walk away, which I think is quite funny. It's interesting to see that there is kind of tension, but not really tension in terms of, at the moment, week to week, we just don't know what's going on with Damien and Finn. One week they could be fine, the next week they are not happy with each other. It's like a friendship you used to have when you were younger. You know, one day you're friends with somebody, the next day you're not. Anything could have happened, but that beats me. It's just interesting to see where the storyline is going. Then we see Imperium backstage. So you've got Giovanni and Ludwig getting absolutely yelled at. And I'm always mistaken with what language Gunther speaks, and I'm not saying it because I'm silly. I just don't want to say the wrong language because I don't want to offend, but he's speaking in his native language, and he's just getting really angry with Imperium. And, you know, Ludwig looks at Giovanni and he's like, I know what I'm going to do to solve the problem. Do you know what you're going to do to help out? So it's interesting to see that Ludwig's also getting kind of annoyed with Giovanni, and it's interesting to see the tension that's going on with Imperium as well. I really like Imperium, and I'm kind of at a bit of crossroads when it comes to this. No pun intended, because we're talking about Cody next. But I'm at a crossroads when it comes to Imperium, because I kind of feel like we've got the bloodline falling apart, we've got Judgment Day having tension and issues. I just want a faction that's not breaking up or has any issues, but it wouldn't be WWE if there wasn't some issues within any groups. Talking about Cody now. So Cody is backstage, and Byron Saxton basically introduces him and he says, hey, we're going to talk to Cody. Cody comes in and, you know, Byron just goes ahead and says, how do you feel about the conclusion of Monday Night Raw last week? And Cody was like, Finn Balor sat on me like a piece of furniture. What the hell is JD doing with Judgment Day? What is going on with JD McDonough? And he goes ahead and he says the weirdest line, but like I totally agree with it. He says that JD McDonough's head is so big on that little body that he's looking like a Funko Pop. And I'm like, now that you've said it, I can't unsee it. And he grabs Byron and he's like, I'm not feeling this out here. I'm not feeling this interview. Let's walk and talk. So he grabs the microphone and him and Byron walk through Gorilla and they walk out into the arena. and everyone just goes crazy because obviously Cody's just come out, and Cody goes ahead and he firstly welcomes Wade and Michael Cole to the commentary team. Now I believe this is the first time that Cody's kind of had a chance to speak since they've kind of come into commentary, so it's nice that he acknowledged that they're there. And he was basically talking about, last week when it came to Judgment Day, they had numbers on their side, but if anything, right now, numbers don't matter, and the odds are not in their favour because obviously you've got Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens who grew up just down the road from here, and obviously we're in Canada, and everyone's super friendly and super kind here. And he goes ahead and he basically just asks, who's going to be in Kevin and Sami's corner tonight in their main event match, and Cody goes ahead and says that there is no love lost between me and Judgment Day. And he says he can't wait to see Judgment Day rise and fall. Then we had Shinsuke Nakamura cutting a promo. Now this is kind of like a pre-recorded TV studio promo. Now a lot of speculation has happened in terms of what did Shinsuke whisper in Seth Rollins' ear last week when they were talking to each other in the ring. Now Shinsuke did cut this promo in Japanese, but WWE did include subtitles at the bottom, which I think really enhanced the promo. It gave you something to follow along with, and I really enjoyed. So I wrote the promo out. I kind of am not going to say it verbatim because I don't want to be strictly reading off my notepad. So I'll try my best to kind of cut it down as much as I can. But Shinsuke basically just says, everyone's been asking what it was that I whispered into Seth Rollins' ear. What could I have possibly said to fill him with so much fear? And he says that Seth is a man who acts like he's got it all. He pretends to be prosperous, charismatic, and obviously he's a champion. And he says, but I know Seth and I know Seth's weakness. And he goes ahead and he says, I whispered to Seth, I know about your back. Seth's back has been broken for many years. He lives in pain. And this pain creates a void inside of him that nothing can fill. No matter how successful he is, he's still in pain. When he hugs his wife, he's in pain. When he picks up his child, he's in pain. He is a world champion, yet every day of his life is filled with pain. And now his worst fear is coming true. He knows that I can break him once and for all. You see, me and Seth are not so different. I have a void too. We live by a code that others do not. In fact, his code is displayed on his back. The very same code, the very same back that is failing to hold him together, just like he's failing to live by that code. And I was like, Shinsuke, don't do it. And he goes ahead and he says, his body has crumbled under the pressure of his own vanity. Are you satisfied, Seth? Are you satisfied with what you've done with your life? Because I will not be satisfied until I take that burden from you, when I break you. Once and for all. Watch your back. So I'm just going to say this match has actually been confirmed for Payback. So it's going to be Shinsuke Nakamura versus Seth freaking Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship. I'm very excited for this match. It kind of feels like it's come out of nowhere, but I'm down for it. Seth and Shinsuke have always put on really good matches together when they've wrestled each other. And I think adding this kind of extra tension, extra pressure of, Seth having issues with his back, I really think this plays into it very well. I really enjoyed this promo. I thought it was fantastic. I really, as I said earlier, appreciated that they put it, I can't even speak today, oh my gosh. I appreciate that they put subtitles in. I can appreciate a promo that's in a different language, but I think because of the message they were trying to convey with this promo and how they were trying to build up the Payback match, I think including the English was the right call to make. But as I say, I'm totally here for Japanese promos, whatever language that person speaks, I'm totally here for it. Then we had the match between Rhea Ripley and Candice LeRae. Now, I don't know, because I don't know what WWE is doing with Candice LeRae. Long story short, they basically jobbed her out to Rhea Ripley. Like, completely forgetting that she is a veteran in her own right. Like, what are you doing? You have years worth of experience from Candice LeRae, and you also have years worth of video footage of the stuff that she has done in NXT. Like, why are you having her job out to Rhea? So quite literally, I'm just going to give you the notes that I've got because this was very much over before I wanted it to be. So Indy and Candice come out together and Rhea and Dominic come out together. Now, Dominic tries to interfere in this match very early on, but Indy goes ahead and tries to sort him out. Then Candice ends up countering a riptide by Rhea, but Rhea ends up winning by submission. Like, there were a few good moves in here by Candice, but she didn't have much of a chance. And I was very disappointed. But I feel like this match was very much set up for... So as Rhea Ripley was leaving, Raquel Rodriguez's music hits and she's coming out to the ring with one crutch. And she does the whole, is she injured, is she not injured thing? And turns out she's no longer injured. So she throws the crutch at Rhea and ends up kicking Rhea and then ends up brawling inside of the ring and ends up doing her fall away slam. And she grabs a microphone and she says, as of today, I am medically cleared. And I am just letting you know that we're going to be having Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Rodriguez at Payback. So I'm happy that the Women's World Championship is going to be defended. I'm not really happy about the way it's happened. The fact that so many of the women in the division have been jobbed out to Rhea when they could have actually had like 15-20-minute matches to actually give the women in the division a really good chance to show that they are more than just a woman that can be riptided into the ring, and Rhea Ripley wins. I love Rhea. Do not get me wrong. I just feel like you can't try and build somebody up whilst tearing other people down. I just feel like we really need to be working on improving the entire women's division and not just showing that one woman is the only woman that can be a dominant threat. But anyway, I digress. It's good to see that the championship's going to be defended. But one thing I was very excited when I saw is Tommaso Ciampa. Now, obviously, as you guys know, I've been really annoyed with WWE's booking of Tommaso Ciampa as of late, but I have been seeing what they've been doing with him on social media in his search for Johnny Gargano. So this promo was really good. I think it was pre-recorded, but nonetheless, whenever you give Tommaso Ciampa a little bit of time to speak, he never fails to deliver a good message. So he goes ahead and he says that it's been 9 weeks since his Monday Night Raw return, and it's been a long 63 days reflecting on who he's been since he's returned. And he says that he's the man who lay in the ring when Chad Gable got to celebrate with his son. Obviously, that was when he had won the Intercontinental Championship Contenders opportunity. And he goes ahead and he says he's got nothing against Chad Gable. And he says he's a workhorse and he'd be lying if he said he didn't want that Intercontinental title opportunity for himself. And, you know, Shinsuke Nakamura defeated Tommaso Ciampa, but now he gets to move on to the World Heavyweight Championship. And he said he came back to be the guy. He's been him before, he knows the feeling, and it's like oxygen when he's just dying to take a breath. And he says he's going to be the change and he's going to do it himself. And I was like, there it is. And he goes ahead and he says he's not here to play, he's here to take over. So is it safe to say that WWE is trying to reunite DIY on the main roster? Yes. Is it safe to say I'm also excited to see this happen? Yeah. Absolutely. If it gives Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano some form of direction in terms of what they're actually doing creative-wise on the main roster, I'm stoked. I love Tommaso Ciampa. I think he's incredibly underrated, and I do think that he should be in the title picture. Whether that's mid-card, tag team, world heavyweight, I don't know. But the main roster has a silent killer on their hands, and it's not Karrion Kross. In this case, it's Tommaso Ciampa, and I'm just really wanting Triple H to actually start making this happen, because I'm getting really sick and tired of Tommaso Ciampa jobbing out to people when, like, we know fully well how great this man is. Then The Miz comes out and he is kind of dressed in his ring gear. We're not really too sure what's going on with him. He grabs a microphone and there's some feedback coming from the crowd about Maryse. And he goes ahead and he says that Maryse wouldn't be caught dead in Quebec because she's actually from Montreal. And I was like, wow, clever, funny. You're funny, Miz. Anyway, Miz goes ahead and he says on SmackDown, LA Knight lost a match, which was the United States Championship title opportunity, and he goes ahead and says that everyone's blaming me. When LA Knight fails to realise that on the big show, there is no room for excuses. And he goes ahead and he says, things happen, you know, champs know that. And he talks about how The Rock interfered in his WrestleMania match against John Cena, but he still managed to retain his championship somehow. And he goes in here and he says, you know, trends come and go, and I'm not a trend. and goes ahead and he says, 20 years from now, you'll still remember me as a game changer, a trailblazer, and a trendsetter, as well as a 2-time Grand Slam champion. In 20 years from now, LA Knight will just be considered a human fidget spinner. I was just like, bro, I get what you're trying to do, but don't degrade him like that, man. Whew. And he goes ahead and he says that LA Knight's not on his level. And he basically goes ahead and he says, I've spoken to Adam Pearce and I'm having a match tonight and I have said who my opponent's going to be. I've dictated who my opponent is in this match, and it is somebody who is faster, stronger, and much better than LA Knight. And who comes out? Akira Tozawa. So Akira Tozawa comes out to the ring, and The Miz goes ahead and says, 24/7 championship. It's no longer around, but it's a perfect title for LA Knight, and asks Akira Tozawa, if this is the biggest match of his career. And Akira goes ahead and responds with, yeah. And he's like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah. And they basically just go back and forth, and Akira Tozawa pretty much tries to get The Miz to say yeah, which he kind of does. Ends up tripping up on his words, and then they end up starting to have a wee little brawl. But then we come back from the commercial, and as the bell rings, LA Knight's music hits, and the crowd just goes absolutely nuts for him. Like, this guy is so incredibly over. Like, it's just insane. Every single time LA Knight comes out, I swear, people are just getting louder and louder and louder. And he does this thing where he's got like a handful of tissues and he just goes ahead and gives it to The Miz, and he's like, this is for your crying, this is for your whining. So it was a really quick match between The Miz and Akira Tozawa. This was solely just because last week on SmackDown, LA Knight had a match against Austin Theory, and The Miz came out and kind of did the same thing that LA Knight's doing on Monday Night Raw to him. So The Miz is very dominant over Akira Tozawa at the very beginning, but then Akira turns it around. Miz ends up interacting with LA Knight on the outside of the ring a few times. LA Knight's on commentary during this match. But then Akira Tozawa ends up throwing The Miz into the ring steps, which I thought was quite cool. And then Akira Tozawa tries to do this high-flying move, but then The Miz ends up getting his knees up. And Akira Tozawa rolls him up because The Miz is quite distracted with LA Knight and ends up winning the match, which was very surprising. And The Miz comes in, he's like in the middle of the ring, and then LA Knight comes in and ends up hitting The Miz with blunt force trauma. So it kind of looks like LA Knight's getting the upper hand when it comes to this feud. I feel like it's only a matter of time before it gets announced for Payback, whether that happens on Friday Night SmackDown or Monday Night Raw. But I also think it's very safe to say that the WWE draft is no longer in effect. You've got people coming from either brand. You've literally just... What was the draft for? I don't know. No clue. Then we see Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle backstage. Now, this was obviously after their match that they had, which was their tag team match earlier in the night. Matt Riddle's super excited, he's super jittery, and Drew goes ahead and he says, I just really I want you to listen to what I have to say. I've got enough issues when it comes to singles and tag division. I've got a lot of drama going on. I just don't think this is going to work. And then New Day come in and they're like, whoa, what's going on here? Why are you trying to stop this so soon? You guys did really well, you work really well together, and we've also just come up with a new name for you. And the New Day have named the team of Drew McIntyre and Riddle McRiddle, which, if you say it fast enough, it sounds like a McGriddle from McDonald's. I don't know if they can trademark that, but I'm here for it. And they go ahead and they say, thanks for having our back tonight when it came to the Viking Raiders. We've got an opportunity to go up against them next week, but how about the following week we have a rematch, which that was quite cool that they set the rematch up with New Day and McRiddle. You're going to catch me dead calling them this after the review. Then we see that the Judgment Day is backstage. Now, this is quite literally just Dominic, Rhea, and Damien. I don't know where Finn's gone. Finn's just, Anyway, Rhea goes ahead and asks, did you guys work it out? Who's going to be in the match? And Damian Priest was like, no, I tried speaking to Finn, but he doesn't trust me, and he's just gone to go and talk to JD. And Rhea was like, to be honest, I feel like you don't trust him either. And Damian was like, can you blame me though? And he's like, what else can I do? And then Rhea says, fine, I gave you guys a chance to work it out. We're going to do it my way now. And I was like... I'll do anything you ask me to. I'll do anything you ask me to, Rhea, please. Just don't hit me. But also, please hit me as well. I don't know what it is about Rhea Ripley as Mommy. I don't know what it is. I'm a grown woman with a long-term partner, and this woman just, she makes me feel some kind of way. And I would let you hit me or do anything, run me over with your car, shoot me in a non-vital place. Like, you could just do anything, and I would be like, totally valid. I get how you're feeling. Like, I probably messed up in some way, shape, or form. Just bloody Rhea Ripley, man. Anyway, so we move into the Becky Lynch segment. Now, Becky Lynch came out before the Judgment Day segment, but because of the way WWE edits things, it's so much easier for me to just talk about these things as they happen on TV. So Becky Lynch came out and they quickly replayed the match that happened last week. If you guys watched my review last week, I'm not going to talk too much about it because it was a train wreck. Anyway, Becky goes ahead and she says, I've got Trish Stratus in a steel cage match at Payback. And she says, over the last few brutal months of this rivalry, there's been a lot of talk about who's the best, who's the greatest, when it comes to legacy. And she says, what do you want your legacy to be? And she says, what are you in control of and what are you not in control of? And she goes ahead and, she says, how do you turn your lemons into lemonade? Which, if you guys know, you know. And she says that my legacy is not defined by wins or losses or championships. It's quite simply defined by me survival at its finest. And she says, you can beat me, you can break me down, you can put me on the shelf, you can do anything to me, but I'll still come back. Not because I'm unbeatable, but because I'm unstoppable. And I always fight back. Which brings me to Trish Stratus. And she says that me and Trish are in a steel cage match and, I've still got business to handle with Zoe. And before we know it, Trish and Zoe have come out. And, Trish is going ahead and she's trying to hype the crowd up, and she's like, she's speaking in French, and she's like, it's so nice to be home. It's so nice to be home. It's so hard being in the US with all those people. It's so nice to be home. And, she says being home means nothing. So she's basically egging the crowd on, and then she turns on them. And she says, well, it's not even Montreal or Toronto. We're in Quebec. And she says she wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the sourpuss, which is obviously referring to Becky Lynch running her mouth. And she says, look, Becky, I've got good news and bad news. She says, the good news here is I'm going to prove to you why I'm the GOAT, not only in my generation, but in all generations. And she says, the bad news is that you've trapped me into a cage. And she says, I'm scared. And then Becky's trying to egg out of Trish to get her to say she's scared. And Becky's like, you're scared. And Trish goes, all right, I'm scared. But, at 24 years old, when I was thrown into a ring with no experience, I killed it. I was scared, but I killed it. And when I main evented Raw, I was thrown into the fire and I was forced to shine. I was scared, but I did it. And she says she's going to stand tall in this cage match. And she says, I'm so sick and tired of having to prove myself. In this steel cage match, you are going to see a side of me that you haven't seen, and you should be scared. And she basically says to Becky that you're not going to survive it. And Becky's like, I'm so scared. And she goes ahead and she says that next week, because before she rudely interrupted me, referring to Trish, Becky and Zoe are going to be having a Falls Count Anywhere match next week. And that's how the interaction finishes. And Becky goes ahead and grabs Trish Stratus' hat and starts cowboying around the middle of the ring. I was just at this point on Monday Night Raw, we're 2.5 hours in. I was like, Becky, anything you do will make this episode so much better. And then we had a video recap from last week from the interaction between Chelsea Green and Adam Pearce. Now, this was obviously because Sonya Deville is now injured. She's had to relinquish the tag title, her portion of the tag titles, I should say. And we got to see the interaction that happened where Piper Niven decided to become Chelsea Green's new tag team partner. Now, if you guys saw it last week, you know that I absolutely loved this. Then we see what Byron Saxton is backstage quickly talking with Chelsea and Piper, and he's kind of just trying to figure out what's going on. And Chelsea goes ahead and she basically says she had to authorize WWE to make both of us tag team champions, and that she made it happen. But Piper's like, huh? And then she's like, just move. Let's go and do this match. So it's quite cool to see that Piper Niven is really taking the reins in this tag team. Chelsea Green's very much kind of like a Karen character. I get what I want to talk to the manager, but Piper's like, just move. Let's just go do this. Let's move. So it's quite cool to see that. So we had a match with Chelsea and Piper going up against Kayden Carter and Katana Chance. Now, I'm not lying if I'm saying this was quite a short match and I was a little bit disappointed, but at the end of the day, I think they worked towards having a very long main event, so it's understandable that things get cut, but just sucks that the women's matches always get cut. But anyway, there was some great teamwork in this match from Kayden and Katana, always on display as they are a fantastic tag team. Chelsea ends up getting advantage of the team, but there's a really nice double team moment from Kayden and Katana. I would give them a nickname, but I don't want to associate them with a specific group of people, so I'm just going to call them Kayden and Katana. Then Piper ends up grabbing Kayden and throws her into a table. Then Piper ends up bulldozing Katana for the win, and this, like I said, was very quick. Obviously asserted Piper's dominance in the team and her power and strength, and Chelsea's grit and quickness in the ring. And then there's a moment where Piper Niven carries Chelsea Green over her shoulders and takes her out, which I was like, that's quite funny actually. Then Jackie Revan was backstage and she quickly caught up with Seth Rollins, and she was basically trying to ask him some questions about how he felt about Shinsuke's promo. And he's like, okay, cool. But before we get into this, let's give the crowd a moment to sing my song because I'm here and, it's cool. So crowd got to sing a song, and, she ends up trying to get the interview going, and Seth's like, are you going to ask me about my back, aren't you? And, he said that Shinsuke Nakamura caught me off guard last week when he brought it up because he doesn't like to speak about it. And he says, I don't like to talk about this publicly, but I do have 2 fractures in my lumbar. And I've had them for 4 years and it's not getting any better. There's no end game. And literally, the next part of this promo, I almost felt myself crying. And I know it sounds dramatic, but it's been a very dramatic week. The potential of Edge retiring was really emotional on me. I'll insert a picture of me here now so you can see how upset I was. And just the thought of Seth Rollins not being able to wrestle again, and I've never had the chance to see him wrestle live, is very disappointing. But anyway, get back into the promo, Courtney. Don't be a little wimp. LA Knight's going to have to give me some tissues at this point. Anyway, he goes ahead and he says he doesn't know how much longer he can work with his injuries at this level. But he says, that's a part of it. And if Shinsuke Nakamura wants to go ahead and target my injury and keep throwing cheap shots, questioning my character and, giving me mind games, that's fine. But the second that you bring my family into it, you have to be prepared to face me man to man. And he says, you were in a TV studio 1,000 miles away from me because you're too scared to face me. But next week I'm going to give you an opportunity to prove that you're not. And he said, next week I'll be in the ring with the title around my waist, dressed to the nines, ready and waiting for you, Shinsuke. And I'm, this match, like I said earlier in my review, has been confirmed for Payback. I'm excited. With this injury story though, I'm really hoping it's not a way to get the titles off Seth. My thought process is if Seth ends up having to have the titles take off him because of his injury, I totally understand that. But if it needs to happen, I want it to not be in the storyline, if that makes sense, because that's just going to be a little bit harder for me to actually physically digest because I love that man with every single part of my being. Now it's time for the main event of Monday Night Raw, which is KO and Sami Zayn going up against Judgment Day. Now, this match starts off as Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn coming out. Judgment Day's music hits and we still don't know who is going to be participating from Judgment Day. It's quite funny. Damian Priest is walking out to the ring first, and then Rhea Ripley is literally dragging Finn Balor and is like, you guys are going to go and do your thing. You're going to tag team and you're going to win this. And she, I just love that she did that. So the match starts out as a 2-on-2. Damian and Finn end up running to the ring and just start brawling with KO and Sami. They're causing absolute carnage. Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio do end up coming down to the ring as well. So Damian Priest and Sami Zayn start out in the ring. Sami Zayn's very quick over Damian Priest at the very beginning of this match. Sami Zayn ends up throwing Damian Priest into the table, as well as Finn Balor as well too. Damian Priest ends up getting the advantage on Sami Zayn, and Damian Priest is looking very strong in this. There is a little bit of tension going on with Damian and Finn at the very beginning. I don't know if that's them playing into it or if that's just how it was at the beginning of the match, but you can tell there's a little bit of tension. KO ends up getting tagged into the match and he goes absolutely guns blazing when it comes to it. He takes out both Damian and Finn. KO ends up cannonballing Damian Priest as well too, and then KO ends up hitting a swanton on Finn Balor. Finn Balor ends up countering a stunner with a sling blade, which was quite cool to see. Finn Balor's sling blades are always very crisp and very clean, so I really appreciated how good that sequence was. Damian tries to end up using the briefcase in this match, and then SAMI ends up getting involved with the briefcase. JD McDonough ends up coming into this match, grabs the briefcase and tries to throw it to Kevin Owens, which causes the match to get ended in a disqualification because KO grabbed the briefcase. And just when we kind of thought it was over, Damian Priest ends up attacking KO, and then we kind of are just at the conclusion that this is how the episode's going to finish. But then Cody runs out, his music hits, and he's basically just like, this is not how we're ending it. There's three of you, three of like us, let's just make this happen. So Adam Pearce comes out and makes the match official. And then Damian and Finn and everyone's just like, what? Like, but anyway, they end up making it a 3-on-3. So it's Kevin, SAMI, and Cody going up against the three members of Judgment Day. So you've got obviously Damian, Dominic Mysterio, and Finn. There's a lot of letters, a lot of confusion at times. So anyway, Dominic Mysterio is in the ring with Sami Zayn first, but then Sami Zayn ends up reversing a lot of his moves. Then Finn Balor comes in and is looking very strong on Sami Zayn. KO's looking very good too, especially coming back from his injury as well. Judgment Day in the first part of this match is looking very dominant, obviously because they have the numbers advantage. They've been proving themselves during the matches. Then we have a moment where KO is looking really, really strong in the match, to the point where he's beaten down on everybody in Judgment Day, and he's obviously just done a cannonball outside of the ring. Rhea Ripley ends up grabbing Kevin Owens and like slamming him like into the outside of the ring, which I really enjoyed seeing her doing that. At this point in time, Judgment Day is looking very cohesive. They've got a lot of control in this match. It's very slow paced, which is what they're after. Damian Priest ends up powering Kevin Owens into a clothesline, which he absolutely folded in half when that happened. He sold the hell out of that. Then Kevin Owens ends up throwing Finn Balor into the table outside, obviously the commentator's table. And then Kevin Owens is powered down. We get some let's go Kevin Owens chants. Then there was a really cool move where obviously Sami Zayn came into the match. He's all guns blazing. He's super fired up. But there was a really cool move where he ends up grabbing Damian Priest and does a top rope DDT, which was really cool to see. It was a super clean sequence. Absolutely loved it. Then there's a moment where Sami Zayn stands up on the top rope and he's obviously trying to hit another high-flying move, but Dominic Mysterio tries to knock him off, but then Rhea Ripley ends up knocking him off and he just kind of falls down. Then we have Damian Priest hitting at Sami Zayn with the South of Heaven. 2 counts, so the match is not over. Damian Priest ends up hitting Kevin Owens with another clothesline. Cody ends up getting pulled off the apron at some point as well too. So I think there was like a super kick that happened earlier, and Cody ends up getting hit with that super kick as well too. So he's kind of out of the match for a little bit, but he's come back in. And when he comes in, he ends up hitting a double Cody cutter on Damian and Dominic Mysterio, which was quite cool to see. Hits a couple of crossroads. Sammy hits a helluva kick, followed by Kevin Owens hitting a stunner on Dominic Mysterio. Gets the 3 count, and it is the team of Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Cody Rhodes that end up winning the main event match. Judgment Day's looking really glum at the end of this, obviously because they came into this match and they were beginning to get really cohesive during this match, but then it all kind of just fell down and crumbled. It's very interesting to see where they go next week from here. I think there's just a lot of tension going on. Whether it was Finn that asked JD McDonough to come and help, I don't know, but I think JD McDonough's involvement in Judgment Day is definitely planting some seeds for some doubt to be spread amongst the faction, but I'm really excited to see where this goes. Sami Zayn summed it up really well for me at the end of this match and just said, better luck next time, guys. But anyway, that was my recap of Monday Night Raw this week. There's a lot to talk about, a lot going into the build for Payback, so it's super exciting to see where the matches are going. I'm sure there's still a few more matches that they're going to announce for Payback, probably on SmackDown, but nonetheless, we've got 3 matches that have been confirmed from Monday Night Raw, which is super exciting to see. That's the recap done and dusted, guys. If you stuck around till the end, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That helps pushes our videos out to the algorithm to find more wrestling fans like you guys. If you're interested in what we're doing on the channel, make sure you subscribe. If you want to check out what we've got going on our personal social medias, they are linked down below, as well as the Outcasted TikTok as well too. We started posting a few more clips, a few more funny things on there as well too. So if you like what we've been doing on the podcast, make sure you check out what we've got going on. We have an NXT review coming this week as well too, and we've also got podcast this week as well too. The boys are going to be talking Star Wars. I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be sleeping in because I deserve a rest and a break. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.